There they go. We're populating. They're coming in fast. Tell everybody if you joined already. We're going to start in a second. We're just waiting for all the people that want to join to populate our webinar here. Okay. Again, everybody, if you joined, we're waiting for all the participants to populate before we get started. Hundreds and hundreds, Your Honor. We look good. I hope we sound good.
Wish we could see everybody. That would be nice.
Are you? Yeah, that's a lot of people though. Are you at home?
I'm at home. Yes.
In the red room?
I'm in the red room. Yes, I'm home in the red room.
Red room of pain, where you inflict the discipline on your subordinates?
No, I don't think it works that way.
I used to joke as I'm going to stop with this line of joking.
Thank you.
I'll tell you offline. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome everybody. This is a webinar put on by Sullivan on Comp. And if you're listening, you may or may not be a subscriber. Normally our special webinars we just have for our subscribers, but we put on this whole series of COVID webinars over the last year. This is number 24, I think. So if you're listening, you probably heard one before. But anyway, we decided just to share them with the whole world for COVID purposes because it just seemed like it was needed. So that's what we're doing. So although it's a projection of Sullivan on Comp, it's something for the whole world. I'm Mike Sullivan, and I am the principal of Michael Sullivan and Associates, which is about an 80 lawyer firm now with 9 offices throughout California. But when I'm doing Sullivan on Comp stuff, I put on my Sullivan on Comp hat, and I'm neutral, and as neutral as I can be, given my DNA as a defense attorney. And I try to just open it up to all the issues, all the perspectives in this role. Sullivan on Comp's a production of, it's a 16-volume legal treatise covering all of workers' comp in California. It's pretty ubiquitous with over 7,000 subscribers in the state. So anyway, that's my intro. And then I'll go ahead and introduce Chief Judge Paige Levy, who I have known for many, many years. And I can remember being in court with you and you giving me a very hard time. So now is my chance for revenge.
Oh, that's what this is about. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I actually have a specific memory of arguing with you about the scope of an expedited hearing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you probably don't remember that, but I do.
Did I win?
I don't have to answer your questions.
Fair enough.
Anyway, Chief Judge Levy has been, how long have you been in this spot?
A little over 5 years now.
Wow. Okay. So she's running the boards and the district offices anyway. And it's been an odyssey. You know, we've watched it all happen over the last year. And I thought it'd be really interesting to talk through with you. I thought the workers' comp community would like to sort of hear your experience as to how it's all gone down in the last year, the kind of challenges you faced and the things you had to wrangle and the ideas you were having and the things you had to change. And then maybe talk a little bit about the future if I get that out of you, I hope. So, you know, that's what we're doing today. So I'll interview you, ask you questions, and then you can just tell the world what you want them to hear.
Sure.
How does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm happy and thrilled to be here actually today and to kind of talk about what the last year has brought us and the changes and the challenges we've encountered. It's been quite amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to start off though, making sure everyone knows what your job actually is. You know, I mean, I can remember being an associate and the board, the chief judge, the administrative director were all kind of fuzzy to me.
Sure.
You know, what is it what's your scope? Who do you report to? What do you do?
So, well, first, you know, as judge, I'm required to say the opinions I express here today are mine and mine alone. They're not the opinions of the state of California. Department of Industrial Relations, the Division of Workers' Compensation, or the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board. So
Okay.
get that out of the way. So, the chief judge is generally responsible for the oversight of the adjudication function of the division's district offices. That includes hiring staff, dealing with staffing issues that arise at the offices, making sure cases are heard in an expeditious manner, calendar dates are available. I work on creating consistency throughout the offices. I'm responsible for making sure judges adhere to the California Code of Judicial Ethics. I also oversee the DWC Ethics Advisory Committee. I'm responsible for making sure not only are cases being heard timely, but that judges are issuing decisions timely. I report any concerns or problems right up through the administrative director. I'm also responsible for training of judges, onboarding of new judges, and that training. My reporting structure is directly to the administrative director and the AD, who's, as you know, George Paige. And the director will help me with any staffing needs or resource needs, facility needs sometimes. And I do this actually in conjunction with the 22 presiding judges that work throughout the state, as well as 2 associate chief judges who report directly to me. And so that's generally our reporting structure up through DWC.
Okay, so you got the Department of Industrial Relations,
Yes.
and then George Parasoto runs that, and it's got a whole bunch of different units, right? And one of them is the Division of Workers' Comp.
So let me clarify that. So the Department of Industrial Relations is actually run by Director Katie
Right.
And so within the Department of Industrial Relations, one of the divisions is the Division of Workers' Compensation. And that is run by the Administrative Director, George Parasoto.
Yeah, see, isn't it great? I embarrassed myself in front of the whole world within the first 5 minutes.
I don't think it's embarrassing. I actually think that can be very confusing exactly how that works within the division. It's not something we talk about normally within the district offices, and a lot of people actually don't know about it. So I think it's important that we actually talk about it.
Yeah. So as I understand it, the DWC itself has 2 main functions, right? You have the administrative function and the judicial function, and then the board, which is made up of 7 commissioners appointed by the governor, right? The 7 commissioners, they're the appeals board.
Right, correctly. For just ease, you can kind of look at it that the district offices are the trial level, and the commissioners in San Francisco are the appellate level. So even though we're all called the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, which is why I think we all get very confused by that.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I look at it. District offices, trial level, San Francisco commissioners, appellate level.
So when we say we're going down to the board to try a case, you think of it more properly as the district office.
I do. I think most of us do, right?
Nobody says that. Nobody says we're going to the district office.
No, they go to the board. And you could try to change that lingo all you want. It has been that way since I've been in practice, which is a few years now. Okay. And so that we're all the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board. We just have different levels of it.
Right. So it's like, that's why when you file a petition for recon, the commissioners can step into the shoes of the judges, and they can even reverse findings of fact, because the judges really are like little mini-me's of the, maybe that's not the right way to put it. They're an extension of the general judicial power of the 7 commissioners, and all issues rest with them.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
They're like, I say they stand in the shoes of the appeals board.
I look at it as if the judges get their authority and power from the appeals board. It flows from the appeals board in San Francisco, from the appellate level.
Yeah.
It is handed down through them.
Yeah. And then on the administrative side, does George have the same sort of, is he sort of lateral with the appeals board? He just performs the it's like division of power between, in the federal government, you have the Supreme Court, then you have the legislature or the executive office, something like that.
I guess that's one way to look at it. I've never really looked at it as that split, but I guess that's one way to look at it. Although the administrative director oversees all of the Division of Workers' Compensation and is responsible for all of DWC.
Okay, so does the board have to do what he says?
Well, the board actually is within DIR.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I know that can be a little confusing. They're actually a board within the Department of Industrial Relations and do not technically sit within DWC.
So, okay, I get it. So then they are lateral.
I guess in some ways it could be. I
Yeah.
guess
And the board does the judicial functions. He does the administrative functions. And you are right smack in between.
I sort of am. Yeah.
Well, that's got to be fun.
I really do enjoy the job.
Hmm.
I really do. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I do, but I really do enjoy the job.
So when you try to make uniform policies at the district offices, who gets mad at you if you do it wrong?
Let's see. If I do it wrong, well, if I do not do something that's in line with the law, then those actions could easily be challenged in the courts and then ultimately be overturned by the WCAB.
But when you plan your stuff and you make your plans and you got some big ideas and you want to do stuff, it's George Parasoto you probably collaborate with.
I would, yes. That's who
Yeah.
I would reach out to. That is my direct report.
Yeah. Okay.
Is George Parasoto.
So what's your relationship with the board like in terms of day-to-day communication?
So I would reach out to the board, in limited ways. The board is not, I don't normally or on a regular basis work with the board, but I do when it comes to certain policies or if we need certain procedural changes, or even I will reach out to them if I think some regulatory changes are needed, since they do the regs for the WCB for the entire court system. It's their regulations that we are bound by. So
Yeah.
if I think something isn't working, or I need, or if I'm recommending a change, I will reach out to them and say, hey, this is how things are actually working in the district offices. I'm recommending a change, maybe a reg change or something in maybe in the policy and procedural manual.
Okay. What kind of things might a judge get in trouble for?
What?
I mean, can you actually supervise these judges, or they kind of have tenure like university professors where I know you can't get in their decisions of fact, but
right. So
what kind of stuff do they get in trouble for?
The judges have independent authority. I do not in any way interfere with or tell a judge how to make a decision or what decisions to make. That is not my authority or anyone's authority. They do make their own decisions. Judges, we have what we call the Ethics Advisory Committee. It's in our regulations, and anybody can file a ethics complaint against a judge. And the Ethics Advisory Committee reviews those complaints. And if they find that there is a violation, they make a recommendation to me to address that. And then I work with the administrative director in regards to any discipline that is necessary or due to an ethical violation. That Ethics Advisory Committee, that information is actually in our regulations and is mandated by our regulations. That committee meets quarterly, and we issue a report that comes out publicly every year to discuss what discipline action was taken or what complaints were filed.
Yeah, it's amazing how much I don't know about that. Who's on the advisory committee?
It's kind of set up with different individuals. It's actually in our regulations how it's set up. I believe, I'd have to check it, but it's like, we have a presiding judge on the Ethics Advisory Committee. And then most people are from the community, could be prior defense attorneys or prior applicants attorneys or members of the public. There are different categories in our EAC and on the Ethics Advisory Committee. I honestly, offhand, I don't remember them. I'd have to check the regulations for that.
Okay. Wow. That's super interesting to me. Yeah, I can remember like it was a couple of decades ago and the judge isn't with us anymore, at least not working with us anymore. So yeah, I can say this. There was a judge in one office who had a sign on his desk that said, "Go to an AME." And I can remember that judge was disciplined because he hadn't taken testimony in a year.
I'm pretty sure that stuff's not happening anymore. Pretty sure.
No, I got to tell you, since when I was a kid, and that was a long time ago, like 30 years ago now, it's totally changed. I mean, when I first got to the board, I was like, man, these guys cannot even get dressed in the morning. It's really bad. There were some drooling idiots. But somehow over the years, it's shaped up.
Yeah, the practice has definitely improved over the last. I I can tell how long I've been in comp based on how old my labor codes are. So my first labor code is 1991. So then I know how long I've been in comp, right? And so
Yeah, wow.
I think back, where the practice was in 1991, and it's definitely a much more advanced practice. And I'm proud of the work we've done, and also the quality of judges that we've brought on in the years, at least since I've been overseeing it. I've really seen some great quality judges that we've really brought into the DWC over the last few years. Really
Yeah, I've seen a vast improvement too, especially, little by little, but especially over the last, few years and last decade or so. It's been a lot. It's been a lot better. Yeah, I started in 91 too.
Yeah, 30
Remember
years.
the 1990 reforms, and we're like,
Yeah.
what? There's no claim for what? There's what?
I do. I
All right. Well, let's talk COVID.
Sure.
I mean, what I'm really interested in is just a sort of narrative exposure of what you went through over the last year. I have a lot of specific questions here, but
yeah, sure. What I did is I actually had to sit down. I knew we were going to get together, and I actually sat down and did a timeline for myself.
Oh,
because so much has happened in the last, 13, 14 months that I really had to sit down and say, where have we been and what has gone on? And so I did take some notes just to get a framework. And I actually appreciate the fact that I did that, because I realized
yeah. So lay it on us.
Sure. So I could start us back. I believe it started for us on March 16th, to be exact. And I believe that was about 4 days before the formal shutdowns happened. And at that point, we started issuing news lines. For those of you watching that are not signed up for our news lines, this is the way you get information about DWC, is through our news line process. Our website has an option to sign up for those news lines. And this is what we really used over this process to communicate with stakeholders and the workers' compensation community to tell you what we were doing. And this was kind of a thing for me. I wanted to make sure I got that information out as quickly and as effectively as possible. So this is the tool that we used. And so, on March 16th, I think we started that was our first news line. And at that point, for the period March 17th through March 20th, we shut everything down but expedited hearings. And we did expedited hearings in person. We felt that those should continue. At that point, we even stopped taking in walk-ins or walkthroughs or any in-person requests.
I remember that. What was it like getting people to work at home? I mean, we just took all our computers and went home.
Right. That's pretty much what we did too.
Was there any issue with that because it's state property or something?
Mm-hmm. So I have to tell you, I'm very lucky. I have a very amazing IT department, and they really work to assist all of us in getting set up at home. They were really fantastic. They were working, and probably are still working 24/7 to make sure everyone could work from home. But generally we just had everybody take their systems home. Some people did work on their personal computers for a while. But yeah, we just set everyone up at home is what we did.
I mean, oh, I see. So I was wondering, like, I guess taking state property to home is okay.
Well, we do track all that property. There it is tagged, and we do track it. We do know where everything is. So we do keep track. Absolutely.
You have issues like the working from home thing. I mean, do you have issues with people with wage and hour issues, like tracking when people are actually working and not working?
We really have not had too many problems at this point. To be honest with you, I've been I have to tell you, the way everybody has really stepped up during this time to make sure we can provide our services has really been phenomenal. I've really been impressed. From the judges to INA officers, raters, secretaries, clerks, just the whole team has really been phenomenal. I have to tell you, from my standpoint, I really have had two goals during this last year. One, keep everyone safe. And two, provide our services without compromising number one, basically. That's really been my goals. And so the question was, how do we do that? and do both those things and continue to do them well. And so, we did what we could to get as many people home as possible. We of course have maintained, and I believe the state has had us at about a 75% telework capacity, where we've had about 20 to 25% in office. And that's been needed to, of course, process mail, serve documents where needed.
So all your mail scanners, they came to work, and all the judges came to work to do expediteds.
For that first week, correct.
Yeah. I mean, is it hard to supervise people when they're at home?
So one of the things we have found is, we use the video a lot more than we used to. So, and I'll talk about in a few minutes when we get there, kind of how we converted it into a video option. I'll get there by timeline. And so our presiding judges have more and more used those videos to have things like judge meetings. And, even more so with our video options, our presiding judges can check in with our judges to see how they're doing, how trials are going, that kind of thing.
I guess you can see when people are on and off their computers.
Yeah, we could definitely track that if we need to.
But it sounds to me like what you're saying is like everyone's working hard and in good faith. So it's like, it's not an issue really as to tracking. No one's slacking, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have that problem because everyone's all hands on deck and you don't perceive that as an issue. So supervision from home has not really been an issue, at least in the first year.
I have found that everyone really stepped up. I think everyone really supports the mission and really supports what we do. And so far, my experience has been that, the work is getting done. And that's really always the primary goal.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And I got to say, our impression is that's happened.
Good.
Like we litigate in front of you guys all day long.
I'm glad.
And it's working.
Yeah. And so initially, we went into, just expedited. And then if you might remember, like the second week, the week of March 23rd, we then went to expedited hearings in person. And then we used court call for a while. I don't know if you remember that. We used the court call option that was already in our system. So we used that for our conferences. From that point, we even closed down the offices for filing purposes. There were a few weeks in there where we delayed everything. Offices were closed for filing purposes. At that point, it was up until April 3rd. So everything was continued. So anything that was due before that was also continued at that point.
Right. Okay.
And at that point, the WCAB, the appellate division, also issued what became their emergency in banks, their first one. I don't know if you remember, if you've seen those, they ultimately issued 7 emergency in bank decisions. So the first one came out at this time, and the WCAB was extremely helpful for us to be able to continue functioning. In fact, without the work they did, I don't think we would have been able to keep functioning as we have. Mm-hmm. So they did things like lift the requirement that that we serve documents by mail. So we've been able to now serve by email. And that's been, really key for us to be able to, work in this virtual environment. So at that point, we issued our next newsline, which came out on April 3rd. And we then continued, we continued the closure for filing purposes until April 13th. We then, at that point, noticed that we were going to be issuing every judge a conference line. It became clear to me from feedback, and I was getting feedback from the community at this time, that we needed a different option. The court call, the paid version, was not going great for our community. It wasn't working for them. So we decided to issue every single judge a conference line.
I remember those days. It was really weird because you guys were just shut down and we couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And the court call, court calls went around for so long, but we didn't really use it, which was weird because our clients didn't like paying us to travel. I don't know why we didn't use it more. I guess the thought was in person, you get more done.
That may have been the reason. I know that over time, the court call usage had expanded, over the years. but we just didn't see that it was working in this scenario, and we needed a better option. So I worked with, at that time they met with the AD, and we worked with our telecom department, and we came up with the idea of issuing conference lines to every single judge. And we were able to do that, and our telecom department turned that around in a couple of 48 hours.
Yeah, that was so fast.
It was so fast.
How did you do that?
I have to tell you, that was our telecom department. They pulled that off. Unbelievable. I was in shock. I mean, every single judge in the state had a conference line.
Yeah. And then I remember at first parties wouldn't show up, and the judge would be like, well, I'm not going to do anything about this.
And so we did that. We posted all on our website. We issued the news line and said, hey, as of April 13th, everything's going to the conference lines, including the expedited hearings. So that way we wouldn't have people coming into the offices. At that point in that news line, we said we'll even accept e-signatures, and for jet filed and e-filed documents, also use that S signature, which is on our e-business, our jet business rules, I think, are in our e-filing form filing guide, if we have some rules about that. We also, of course, then we're really encouraging parties to e-file or jet file documents. So that was kind of, hey, use those electronic options.
Did you see a drop in the amount of physical mail relative to electronic filings?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing an increase in electronic filings. First of all, it's faster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have as many people in the offices. And so if you e-file something or jet file something, it's just going to get to us faster, and we can turn it around faster.
I'm breaking off from your timeline, but I'm kind of wondering, why don't we just make it mandatory?
Great question. And it's something we are definitely looking at.
Yeah. I mean, in the past, you might have said, well, some people don't have computers, but I guess, I know some firms that are still not paperless.
Unfortunately, in this environment, if you're not, and you're doing things by mail, then it's going to delay things where, things can just happen faster. And also it is easier for us to, we have limited people working in the offices. So, we'll get to it. It's just not as quick as if you e-file or jet file something.
Well, you heard it here, everybody. Well, you didn't really, but it seems like mandatory is just coming.
We'll be looking at
come. Nothing else makes sense.
I'll
say it. I'll say, if you don't want to say it, I'll say it. It's coming, man. Get online.
I would like to see that eventually.
Yeah.
I think it would be easier on everybody. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
From an efficiency standpoint.
Not a new one. It's just, I guess, a question of timing.
Yeah. No, I would have to agree with you. So, moving on April 6th, so we're still in April of last year, we issued another newsline. And what happened at this point was the WCAB actually issued their second emergency in-bank COVID decision. And at that time, they were now allowing the email filing of certain documents. So from this point, and we issued a newsline on April 6th reflecting this, that any document that was subject to a statute of limitations that could not otherwise be e-filed, jet filed, or filed by U.S. mail could be filed in an email option, which we had posted email boxes on our website for each office. So that then happened on April 6th to allow for, increased filing options.
I remember that.
So move on to April 28th, we then added the case in chief trials came back to the conference lines effective May 4th. So
that's when everybody started saying, hey, I can't cross-examine the witness in person. It's a violation of due process of law.
Right. That's when that started. Right. So then I'll get there in a second. So that's effective May 4th. We then go into the trial options, and the WCAB issues its third in-bank decision, which then lifted the requirement that trial exhibits be filed 20 days before trial. All right. So that was lifted at that time to give parties some a little more leeway about, getting to trial and getting those exhibits filed.
Was there a question at the time as to whether the WCAB had the power to set aside regulations?
It's my understanding that the WCAB can lift its own regulations or suspend its own regulations. I think that's in the code. that they do have that authority.
It's
That's
a
my understanding.
emergency because it's an emergency.
I think just in general, they have that authority. I'm not sure if it's an emergency. It's a good question, but it's my understanding they have that authority.
Okay.
And
I
I
can
have to
remember
tell
that
you,
being raised too as an issue at the time.
I don't remember it. It didn't come to me as an issue. I can tell you, if they didn't do some of these things, I'm not sure we would have been able to do what we've done.
And were you sort of telling them, hey, I need you to do this?
I did reach out to them and say, hey, this is where we're going. I'd let them know what our plans were. And so then they could make decisions. But I had to let them know, hey, this is what the district offices are doing. Obviously, they handle the procedure. They oversee, they're that extension. So they needed to know kind of what we were doing on the ground.
So they were Pinky and you were the brain?
I don't know if I characterize it like that. I would say the entire department worked as a team. I really would say that to assist everything to stay online, so to speak, to keep going. It was very clear to me when this started that we needed to provide our services, that we serve some of the most vulnerable citizens of California, and we need to be there. And the question became, how are we going to do it and keep everyone safe? How are we going to do it? And so that really became, it wasn't about, are we going to do it? It was, how are we going to do it? And that was really the process. And it was an all hands on deck to make that.
Just a continuous stream of communication about what are we going to do here? Let's do that. Okay, here's the en banc. Okay,
right.
I think I get it.
So that's how we kind of did that. Now, also in May, the system was updated to add a body part code for COVID. I don't know if you saw that to help track that. And then you might know this, or you might have seen this, but on May 7th, the governor also issued the executive order, which was N-63-20. And that lifted any statute or regulation that required in-person hearings as long as certain conditions were met, and also lifted any regulation or law that allowed a party to object to hearings by phone or other electronic means. In fact, you may have also seen the Gayow decision, I think it's pronounced Gayow, that came out in January of this year about that very issue. The board issued the significant panel decision on this issue in due process, where they were pretty clear that hearings should continue in this platform. And that it was generally not a due process violation. I think they stopped short of saying that it was always okay or always sufficient. There might be some situations, but that we should err on the side of moving forward with cases in this virtual platform.
Yeah, that case was really interesting to me because it relied, at least in part, on the idea. It's like, hey, we're in an emergency pandemic here, guys. And in part it said, there's not a problem. You can do this.
Yes.
So going forward post-pandemic, which I want to get to at the end, I'm saving all my best questions for the end about the future. Is that logic going to still hold? I don't know. And it also depends on what we decide to do long-term in terms of hearings and in person and all that.
Right. But
in the present environment, it's, at least at the board level.
Right. At the present environment, if we stopped or delayed things to wait for in-person, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know when that's safe, and to not proceed with hearings, that's a lot. I mean, think about it. If we just stopped everything last March and said, okay, we'll wait till it's over. 14 months, we're still sitting here. Could you imagine? First of all, it would take.
It'd be like the civil courts.
Yes.
The civil courts just ground to a halt.
Right.
But it's interesting that the administrative courts like the WCAB, we just have more options. We don't have any juries.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we've got a lot of great people that really stepped up and made this, and we're committed to the cause, or committed to the mission and to making this work. And so I am so lucky I work with the people I work with that really work to make sure that we stayed available for the community. So that was great.
See, I don't think you agree with the Mike Sullivan philosophy of leadership, which is when things go well, I take all the credit.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, you're being modest, but I mean, your leadership obviously was a big part of it.
Yeah, I'll take some credit. I will. At the same time, this is I am not a one person show by any means. This was a massive lift to make this work and to make this happen. And there were a lot of people that had to work with me, that I worked with to, get this thing to happen, to keep going.
Yeah, I'm kidding, but I know what you mean.
So,
I mean, it's, and it's, do you get to pick your own people, or does the state make it hard on you to do that?
You mean,
what credit do you get for hiring good people in the first place?
Well, that I'd like to take credit for.
You get to pick. Do you get to pick?
Well, right. We interview people. I mean, I'm part of, like, when presiding judges, for example, I'm part of that interview panel. Absolutely. We do have guidelines and state rules about hiring that we must adhere to. But I am definitely part of an interview panel. It's not just me. It's usually multiple people that sit on an interview panel when we hire either a presiding judge or a judge. Absolutely. But yep, I'm taking a lot of credit for all our good people. That I am taking credit for. So
that's what I take the most credit for at the firm. It's like, okay, hiring is so important. Really good hiring.
Very key. And we actually did a lot of it in the last year. A lot. I've been really impressed by how much hiring we've actually done in the last year. We've really worked on that. We've hired a lot of judges just within the last year.
Yeah, you have. And then did you have COVID run through your did you have an issue? Because like what we've seen is a couple of things. People get COVID, right? And then the second thing is people have their kids at home.
Yeah.
Or sick family members.
Yeah.
And they just can't do their job, and then they try and do it anyway. And then they don't do it as well, or we need to cut them some slack. But I don't know how that kind of thing works in your environment or what you faced.
So we faced all those things. We really worked to try to accommodate as much as possible. Whether that's, people needing to work from home because they're caring for children who are in their homeschooling. That was definitely a piece. We really worked to accommodate and try to allow people as much flexibility as possible, and we'll continue to do so.
Did you have instances where they just couldn't do the job?
Yeah, and I know that there were benefits that were available that the state had implemented, both federally and state. There were benefits out there that we, of course, made available to our staff. But there were situations like that where somebody, may have had a sick family member, or they're homeschooling children. And so we definitely worked with everyone to do what we could to help accommodate people. That was definitely was a priority for us.
I'm getting some comments and questions here. One of them is that the INA officers are superheroes without capes.
I agree with you. They're absolutely. You know who else has been amazing? We have a call center that has just been our lifeline during this time. And they've also been absolutely incredible in making sure that they connect with either injured workers or anybody needing assistance during this time. So I got to tell you, I have a lot of superheroes that work for the district offices, or the trial level, as we want to call it.
The board.
We'll just call it the board. So just going on in the timeline, we on June 8th, we added back lean conferences at that point to our calendars onto the conference lines. So at this point in June of last year, so this is when everyone was getting antsy about the video option, right? So this was really where I was really on a mission to find video cameras. And I don't know if y'all needed video cameras during this time, but toilet paper and video cameras, almost impossible to come by. All right. It was just impossible. And I was on a mission. I personally would spend nights, I have to tell you, like, I'm on Amazon looking for video cameras. I'm on every website looking for video cameras. This was my evenings. Oh, gotta find something. Oh, I found 3 here and 4 here. And so I was really on this. How am I going to get this video online? Because I could not get cameras. That was my biggest challenge at the time. So
wow,
that was the big issue. And that's why it was delayed. So I reached out to the chief information officer for DIR and worked with George Perisotto as well as our director of industrial relations, and they just went to work and they found us cameras. I don't even want to know where or how, but they found us cameras.
Did you go to the black market?
I have no idea how they did it. I have to tell you.
There was this video. It was really funny. It's this guy driving into the bad part of town, and this guy in a trench coat, you know, it's like, you got the money, you know, and he's handing him toilet paper.
Right. or you know, a scissor for a haircut, right? There's a few of those videos online. So that was really like, I mean, I literally I almost started buying them myself, you know, getting on my Amazon account, trying to find something. And so we got a hold of cameras, probably July, August, I think July, we finally got a hold of cameras, and like they said they were coming and then they were delayed. It was one of those, we got the order in and then it was one more week. And so once we finally got them, you know, my next step was, you know, how are we going to incorporate this video option and what platform are we going to use? So it turns out that this life size is something that we had already in our system. We had been using it for remote court reporting, sometimes for accommodations, injured workers who could not travel. So we had actually already used this program. And so what I did is I recruited a few people to do a mock trial. So we sat down and I wanted to see if it would work with an interpreter and also if somebody was on their cell phone, because those two were big for me. I thought, wait a minute, an injured worker might not have a computer and they might be on their cell phone. And a lot of our cases have interpreters. So I needed to make sure that was going to work. So I recruited a couple of bilingual staff members. I had one be the interpreter, I had one be the injured worker, and I made them work on their cell phones. And then I had a court reporter elsewhere, and we did a whole trial. And it worked really well. And I said, great, this is going to work. And at that point, we had to train everybody. And there were a couple other things I really liked about this life size platform. One of the things I really liked is it has a static link. So the link to my courtroom will always be the same link, which makes it, in my mind, feel sort of like our public courtrooms. It's a little more open. The other thing I really liked is that we can name the courtrooms. So my courtroom says Judge Paige Levy courtroom, and all the courtrooms have that naming convention. And so I liked those options. And so at that point, we, you know, launched about mid-August our video option. I think we rolled out availability as of August 17 for trials and expedited hearings. We also brought back our special adjudication unit trials at that time. And at that point, so you know, now we're getting really back online, right? Everything's looking pretty good now.
Yeah, it's rolling.
It was rolling, right? So my biggest issue at this point was notices. The notices had to change. So all of our notices up until this point were sending people to the district offices. Now, our notices are issued by the Office of State Printing. I got to tell you, things don't change that quickly or alter that quickly. Takes a minute. And I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to fix this one? So,
well, it's a lot of notices.
It's a lot of notices, right? It's a lot of notices. So I reached out to our IT department and we brainstormed with that team to figure out how we could do it. And they figured out how we could change the notices to have the conference line numbers on the notices.
How many trials do you guys do a year?
Well, I could tell you right now, since June of last year, we do between 22,000 and 24,000 hearings a month.
A month?
Yeah, hearings. Statewide.
Yeah,
hearings overall. I've been tracking since about June. We're between 22 to 24,000 on average hearings per month. Those are all.
How many open cases do you have at a given time?
Oh gosh, I could not answer that question.
Okay, sorry.
Because an open case is
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I get it.
It's is it active? Is it open? Could mean, you know, we have a lien pending. Those are interesting.
It never dies. Yeah.
In workers' compensation. So that's where we were, you know, and then so about the middle of August, we were able to change the notices to include the conference line numbers to allow everything to start on the conference lines. And then in September, middle of September, we added back lien trials. We also posted on our website information about life size. So everybody could get, some information. We also posted how to file, settlement documents. We posted information to assist parties on that.
Yeah,
And so that,
walkthroughs were a big deal for a long time, right? Because you just had to stop them.
right, exactly. And I'm going to get to that in 1 second on that walkthrough piece. So because, we have brought those back online.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so everything seemed to be okay. December 10th, you might remember the regional stay-at-home orders were issued. At that time, we had to limit staff in the office even more. We know that there had been an uptick and the spread had increased pretty significantly in December. So we were, we try to limit in office. We really asked everybody to try to e-file or jet file documents so we could limit staff during that time. And so, around December 15th, the WCAB actually issued its 7th in-bank. They had issued a few in-banks, like the 4, 5, and 6, actually lifted the suspension of the regulations. So, for example, they had issued an in-bank, at one point they had lifted the 20-day requirement for trials for exhibits to be filed. And they put that back into place in one of their in-banks. So they started to return a lot of the regulations. They put a lot of those back into place. And then on December 15th, they lifted one of the regulations for walkthroughs, which gave us more options to allow for walkthroughs.
I remember that. It's like you can go anywhere to any judge and they can, yeah.
It really kind of opened it up for us. So on January 11th, we added walkthroughs to the virtual platform. What we did is we created a courtroom for each and every office. I believe it says, like it'll say Marina Del Rey walkthrough courtroom. And we posted all those links on our website. And we are doing CNRs and STIPs only Monday through Friday, 2 to 4. And so in our virtual platform. And so that's been kind of the last change that we did. And that's where we stand basically today. And we're continuing to hear cases in this remote environment. And as I said, we're doing between 22 and 24,000 hearings a month statewide, which is about 80% of what we normally do. So it's a little bit less. But I got to tell you, I just so impressed and so proud of the work of the judges and the staff. And a lot of superheroes out there have done an amazing job during this time.
Do they like working at home?
I think a lot of people seem to like working at home. That is my experience. I'm hearing that. Some people really want to be back in. I think there's at least my impression is most people would like more of a hybrid, maybe a few days at home, a few days in the office. But I'm definitely hearing that they do like working at home.
I mean, do they like it more than they initially did?
I think so. I think there was definitely getting used to. I think, look, I imagine, and what I'm hearing from the community is that, once everybody got used to it, it got a little easier, a little more comfortable. We did the DWC conference a few weeks ago, and that it was interesting during the conference. They had chats going on. People had chat threads going on. And I got to be a little bit of a fly on the wall on some of those chats. And one of the conversations was about how people felt about the virtual environment. And I saw some very good feedback. A lot of people really seem to be enjoying, especially the conferences on the conference lines.
I imagine there's some people that just want to come back to the office because of kids.
You mean to get away from children?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my sister is a PhD in psych, and she said, a lot of first children are being born during COVID, but not a lot of second children.
I have to
like,
tell you.
This is what it's like being home with the kids all day, especially when there's no school. So it's probably a mixed bag. I mean, what I want to ask these questions about the future. I have a lot more questions about what's happened so far, but
yeah,
I heard George speak, and I thought he said, "No, I'm getting in trouble for this," but because the big question is, are we going back? I mean, that's the big question. Yeah. Like June 15th, right? Everything is supposed to be copacetic. We're all getting vaccinated. The COVID claims their incidences is falling, and what can you tell us?
So first of all, it's a great question, obviously.
Well, it's what
And
everyone wants to know.
I know everyone wants to know. And when I was at the DWC conference, I was doing case law, and that was the only question. What are we doing?
Well, I want to caveat. George said we're going back for trial, but other than that, we're not going back. I thought that's what he said.
So, let me start here that we've not made any decisions about what the future holds, okay, as of yet. Yeah. Even come June, you have to realize something. If you think about it, if we are still in a scenario where we need social distancing, that could be very challenging for some of our offices. We can't, there might be some offices and some courtrooms where we might not be able to meet those guidelines. And so we won't be able to, bring back hearings where we can't do that if that's required of us. All right. So we have to think about that. We are definitely looking at what the future should look like post-COVID. I think we have learned amazing lessons in the last 13, 14 months. I think we all have from I never thought we could do anything like this. I've been even amazed at what we were able to pull off during this time. And I would really like to see at least some of this stay with us for the future. But what it's going to look like, I do not have an answer about that right now, but I will definitely like to see, and my preference would be to incorporate some kind of virtual option or remote hearings for the future.
Okay. Well, we like it.
Got it.
Yeah, we like it. I mean, our clients like it. I don't know how much for the applicants' attorneys like it, but it just stuff gets done. It's more efficient. There's no travel.
Right. So the feedback I'm getting, and I'm wondering if this is consistent with what you're hearing. The feedback I'm getting is that everyone seems to like the conferences on the conference lines, but would prefer trials in person. That's what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I think the concern with trials is witness testimony. Right now, I'm going to give you an idea I have.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. I'm up for ideas.
Let's say we go forward and we stay virtual except for trials. The first day of trial is just is usually you don't get much witness testimony, right? So I was thinking, what if the first day of trial was steps and issues and put evidence into the record and make decisions and get it all ready except for witness testimony, and then the second day of trial, if trial in person would only happen when witness testimony was going to commence. The only problem is it might cause more trial days than needed.
You also have to remember, anytime, no matter what we do, if a judge and the parties stipulate to something different, that's always an option. Let's say, trials are back in person. Granted, I don't know if that's going to happen or when that's going to happen or what that looks like in the future. But let's say we do have in-person trials and the parties stipulate and the judge stipulates to, hey, we want to do this virtually. Always an option if a judge wants to order something else. That is within a judge's jurisdiction.
You don't like my idea that much, do you?
No,
I can see it. You're like,
Look, I have to tell you, I'm open and listening to all ideas. Again, I just don't know when or what's going to happen for our future. I can tell you we are definitely evaluating what the future will look like and what the best way is to move forward.
Yeah. Do we have any idea as to when these decisions might get made?
This is really all going to be based on what happens with obviously the crisis. What the rules are. For example, as I was talking about, if social distancing, if we all need to be 6 feet apart for an extended period of time, that does affect those decisions.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't even really know when we're going to decide.
I can't say that right now. I might have certain offices where you can have a 6-foot distance in certain courtrooms, other offices that might not be available. So really, we just don't know. I have to follow direction from higher up and from and we have to listen to both the governor's office, the director's office, as well as any direction from public health.
I don't think we're going back. We have to. I just don't. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, you know. But I do think we're going back for witness testimony, and I think I'm gonna do a prediction because I'm not in your seat.
Okay.
Yeah, my prediction is we're not going back.
Oh, you don't think we're going back at all?
It's within the discretion of the judge to have an in-person hearing on any particular type of conference. But I don't, other than trials and we're special cases, you know, I don't think so. It just doesn't, it's too efficient.
Again, like I said, I will leave it with that, you know, we're definitely evaluating how much of this we're going to keep in the system.
So would we have to do any legislative or regulatory changes to effectuate what if we do stay virtual?
We might have to.
Or is it all just board policy? I remember when you first started doing it virtually, I looked it up in the law. I looked up the word appear, and it turned out that it could be virtual. So I think I don't know of any specific I mean, we've done this really without any regs or statutes.
Yeah, I actually think if I remember when I looked at this early on, I actually felt that we were okay legally and regulatory, and from a regulatory standpoint, we were okay as to our actions. I think everything we've done has fit within our regulations and within our codes.
I think so too.
And remember, the governor issued that executive order, so that kind of covered that piece, saying that, hey, any in-person requirements are lifted. So you've got that executive order part too that kind of fit that.
Yeah, we could just do whatever we want.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, we can do a lot. We have a lot of discretion.
Well, we're very lucky that we work within a framework that allowed us to do what we do, to continue to provide our services. As you talked about Superior Court, a lot of Superior Courts just shut down completely.
Yeah. Well, I think we're running out of time. I think we have just a few minutes left.
A few questions we want to answer?
Yeah, let me scroll through here and see. There's some long comments I can't possibly read in this.
Are they nice comments?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, it is. There's some weird ones and there's some poignant ones. I don't think there's anything I'm going to verbalize. My clock doesn't give us more than just a few minutes left. So.
Sure.
Well, please expand the walkthrough. Is there enough time to do all the walkthroughs?
So, one thing I do want to let everyone know, the judges are working very hard. And so we're doing everything we can to meet the needs right now, but I want to be careful not to overburden the judges. And so I just have to, as you've seen, I kind of did things slowly, and that was intentional. So we didn't overburden the staff, okay? Because, they're working in a virtual environment, it's not as easy as working in in-person environment, especially in that walkthrough option. But I will be looking at what we can do to continue to expand our services. And again, I'll go out on a newsline if there are some additional services we'll be providing for the community.
I can remember picking my judge when I would walk through. Say, oh, I'm going to judge easy peasy. I'm not going to judge stricty guy.
That was never okay, and that's even less okay now.
Oh, I mean, I never did that. That's what I mean by that. Okay, well, I think we're gonna have to call it quits. We're about out of time.
Oh, okay.
So, but I want to thank you for coming on. I've been really curious about what it's like on your side of the world, and I think it's valuable for people to hear. And at the risk of sounding like I'm pandering, you've done an outstanding job in a time of terrible crisis, and it's been amazing.
Thank
It's
you.
been amazing. You've done a really amazing. You know, you and your staff and everything, but you personally too had vision and, you know, expeditious action. And it's incredible that this kind of this historic transition can be made in such a compressed time period with so few problems. It's one for the history books. So way to go.
Thank you.
And I can tell you, we're grateful as an industry. No one says any different anywhere. So you get a gold star.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
get 2 gold stars.
Thank you. And I do want to thank everybody that has been part of this transition for doing an amazing job and for really stepping up during this crisis. And I also want to thank the community for their patience during this time. You know, we appreciate that. And we appreciate you working with us to make this all work.
Good times. All right, Judge Levy, Chief Judge Levy, thanks again. With
Thank
that,
you so
go ahead
much.
and sign off.
Have a good one. Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.